I told people they didn't want to believe me. Jesse, you were here. I told people the cradle of quarterbacks in college football, Connor Wegman, Haynes King, Marcel Reed. It's always been as clear as day to me. The cradle of quarterbacks has been College Station, Texas. I told you guys. I didn't tell you anything like that. We're jam-packed. We're high atop a glowing downtown Nashville, Tennessee on the Sunday, September 14th, the year of our Lord 2025 edition of this show. Man, what a Saturday that was. You could have chosen to be where we were in Knoxville. You could have chosen to go to South Bend. You could have chosen to go to Atlanta, which we thought about. Yeah, there was a lot of really, really good down-to-the-wire college football games yesterday, in many cases that did not adopt the game script that the games were supposed to adopt, as Mima always told us. That's why we play the games. So it's a full reaction Sunday. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on the intro. We got a lot to get to. The AP poll is an abject disaster today. I would argue worse than it's been all year. So, I mean, if they keep screwing up, we'll keep correcting them. Can't believe that this is a thing. Fourth week into the season. 2 head coaches have lost their jobs today. We do not delight in that, but I will talk about it. And I've got 3 best bets to toss aboard the Ramen Noodle Express tonight as it chugs out of the station for week 4. They're watching us in Clarksville, Texas, Rotterdam, it's in the Netherlands, Bradley, FYI, Salem, Oregon, Fife, Alabama. Bradley knows where Fife is. They're watching us everywhere. Hey, if you're on the YouTube channel right now, you might notice that number says, well, it's probably like 401,000 now. We passed 400,000 subscribers, which is significant because it kickstarts the road to 500. And once we get to 500,000 subs, which I challenge you to make this season, I need to come up with some ideas on what to do. We're not going full nude on the show because even though I snap my fingers and can make TVMA appear in the monitor, we have to keep the children around. It has to be a child-friendly show. However, I am not above completely humiliating myself for the cause. I've thrown a clown nose on several times on air. So Georgia Tech won yesterday. I'm not throwing on the clown nose for that. Vandy won yesterday. I can't throw on the clown nose for that. Lagway, the best quarterback in the SEC, I suppose I could throw on the clown nose for that, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to decide what we should do when we get to 500,000 subs. Side note, make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already. Okay, let's dive into the show tonight because we got a lot to get to. That's a hefty stack of papers in front of me. Georgia gave up 41 and still found a way to win in Neyland Stadium yesterday. Stunning atmosphere, stunning everything. We were there. This is about as good as college football gets. I wish so badly that people who have not been to Neyland Stadium on a Saturday afternoon could be there for a big conference game. Georgia's in town. It's a back-and-forth affair. They grab the early lead. Georgia takes the lead. Tennessee takes it back. And there we are all the while. This was the scene. I tried to tell you guys, follow on the Instagram story. That's Bill Martin, friend of the program. He takes us up on the roof of the press box every morning of a game day when we're in Knoxville and it's empty and then it's full. And that's what it looks like down there on field level. Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, we witnessed our first 5 Chalai Classic yesterday. 5 out of 5 Chalai, which for the newly washed around here is the plural of chalice, which also makes no sense to you, but stick around, it will. This was a classic. You rate it in whatever metric you want to. There were fourth downs. There were new stars emerging. There were a couple of quarterbacks playing at a higher level yesterday than several of the alleged Heisman favorites that I was urged to believe in the preseason. Man, what a day. Overtime, field goal drama. It was unbelievable, and I'm sure most of America watched. I can't believe that there are American citizens that chose not to watch this. Not people that got dragged off to fall weddings against their will. I mean, there were people who just chose to, hang out and go to a park yesterday. You do you. We'll do us over here. It is so hard to cut the head off the snake, isn't it? That was part of the game preview we did, if you'll recall, last week. Animal rights activists came after us. No, even they say do what you want to with snakes, as does a certain wife of mine. But I said, it's really hard to beat Georgia. Not groundbreaking analysis. But I think, let me pull this table over towards me. It's when you haven't beaten a team in a long time, it starts to feel like you can't. And that's not ever the case. It just means you have not. We've gone over this rule on this show many times before, cannot versus have not. And I still believe that Tennessee merely has not beaten Georgia 9 out of the last 9 tries. Eventually they will. I mean, Bama got up to what, Jesse, 14 or 15 in a row, and then they've beaten them 2 out of 3 years now. So, it will eventually happen. However, up until the moment where it does happen, it feels like it's impossible to do because it's really hard to cut the head off the snake. This is the most points Tennessee has scored against Kirby Smart, and it was in their own building, and it still wasn't enough. Of the many things, and there are many things that stand out about Kirby Smart's Georgia football program, but one of the things I've always admired is how resilient they are. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot. He uses the word a lot. But a lot of times, if you'll notice, whether it be your program or a program you watch, you notice how over time programs develop styles. Coaches develop styles. Fan bases develop styles they like to win in. Florida's may be different than Georgia's, may be different than Tennessee's, may be different than Kansas State's. But over time, even when you start rolling, well, when you're not rolling, you just want to win, period. But when you are rolling, there's a comfort factor in playing a certain way. The thing I've always admired about Kirby in Georgia is, yeah, he's got a style. He's a defensive-minded coach. Normally, you're not used to seeing them give up a whole lot. But when they do, it feels so uncomfortable. If you're a Georgia fan and you're watching and other guy just marches down the field and scores on you to open the game, and they got 21 on the board really early in the game, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I hoped we wouldn't give up 21 all afternoon. It's not even close to halftime yet. And then you go on to find out the other guy's going to be up in the low 30s, mid 30s. They may crack the 40-point barrier. That's not comfortable for a Georgia fan, even if you're going to go on to win the game. That's not comfortable. Saban at Alabama was the same way. That's not comfortable. That's not the way a Georgia football game is supposed to look, because they normally don't look that way. The most impressive part of one of the many things that Kirby Smart's been able to accomplish there is they can get way out of their comfort zone and still look comfortable. There is no world where I'm sitting there thinking Georgia is going to have to score in the mid-40s to win this thing. But yet they had to yesterday, and they did. And they didn't do it with a fifth-year veteran senior quarterback, and they didn't do it with dominant returning starters along the offensive line. It was none of that. It was just fighting. Because as many guys come through that program and leave and go on to the NFL as they do, that's the one thing that remains. Doesn't always mean every team's going to be as good as the previous year's team. This team, Kirby said it in the postgame, I fully believe it's got a long way to go. Tennessee probably got a long way to go. A lot of folks got a long way to go. But man, how prepared they are at being uncomfortable has always impressed me. I was really surprised at the route the game went. Over-under was 50.5, both of them. With the help of one overtime period, get above 40. Game had every reason to be a quarterback struggle. If you'll notice across the country yesterday, and in general this year so far, there are a lot of quarterbacks that a lot was expected of that have struggled. And you would think for all the world, if there's going to be a quarterback struggle fest on the week 3 slate, well, couldn't it be Joey Aguilar going up against a legitimate defense for the first time? Couldn't it be Gunnar Stockton going on the road for the first time against quality competition? And both of them just lit it on fire yesterday. Padlock stat, though, as we popped the paper, Georgia was 5 of 5 in the red zone for 26 points. And Tennessee was 2 of 3 for 14, including the missed field goal. There were really no definitive statements. It's always really kind of fascinated me how these back and forth games where either person could win and someone misses a field goal and then the other guy takes advantage of it. Great. That's great. That's the name of the game. You're trying to win the game. But sometimes, if you're listening to the call-in shows on the way home or you're talking to your buddies about the game, there's so many things that you speak about in a positive nature after a win that if you change nothing else about them but the outcome, you would speak negatively about. Like if you didn't run the ball well enough. Well, if you win 44-41, that's cool. But if you lose 44-41, oh man, we sucked running the ball. That's what cost us the game. Well, there really is no definitive. When a game is this balanced on the seesaw, there really is no definitive. I wondered whether Gunnar Stockton could take advantage of what I thought was a vulnerability, was a matchup edge, his wide receivers versus Tennessee's secondary. I wondered that. Well, he answered the question pretty definitively. Yes, he can. He was 23 of 31, 304 passing yards. Just an insane performance. Just an amazing performance. I do not care. I do not care what Tennessee was missing yesterday. Because you would have talked to a lot of Tennessee folks before that game, and they would have told you, we still feel pretty good. Okay, these guys filling in the secondary, it's not like we got them off the scrap heap. They're good players. They're experienced players. They're not as good as the starters. Otherwise, they'd be the starters. Man, Gunnar Stockton went in there just fearless. I think it helps a lot when you connect early on. The first pass, I think the first play from scrimmage that he had, they hit on a deep ball, kind of reminiscent of what they tried to do with Beck, and I think maybe Arian Smith. Was it the Bama game last year? They tried to hit him down the sideline. He drops the ball because that's all Georgia receivers did last year. Well, this one connected. And all of a sudden, instead of your quarterback starting out like Arch Manning started out the Ohio State game, and your play calling going into a shell, no one trashing Mike Bobo today, by the way. It's funny. Instead of that happening, you got a quarterback with a hot hand. Doesn't really matter how much experience he does or doesn't have. If he's getting the job done, you keep letting him get the job done. And then the other part of it that I wondered, okay, well, can Tennessee stretch the field? Because they've been notoriously incapable of doing that against Georgia. And Nico last year, longest pass play, 17 yards. Joey Aguilar, 72, 56, 32, 21, and 18. He had 5 passes yesterday, longer than Nico's longest pass last year. 3 of those went for touchdowns. Tennessee, though, only had 1 rush of 10-plus yards. So they stayed committed to that ground game, but Georgia's not going to let you run the ball on them like that. They're just not. Tennessee actually had a decent enough day, and they're going to stay committed to that thing. But Georgia, just to recap how impressive this is now, very imperfect team, because there is no perfect team out there yet. So you don't have to keep qualifying your statements about that. 3rd week of the season, to go on the road with a first-time starter at quarterback, and you're giving up, 38, I guess, in regulation, and still winning the game, knowing you've got a laundry list of things you think you can improve leaving. It's impressive to me. So consider this. Okay, I'm going to talk Tennessee for a second. I'm going to get right back to Georgia. Consider this, and this is not merely me talking, although I agree with what's about to be said. There was a coach that was rewatching some of the stuff this morning. He was texting me back and forth. This is a head coach, and he said, "You know what's crazy about Heupel and about Tennessee?" ... I said, "What is that?" He said, "The quarterback situation is such that it's obvious they trust Joey Aguilar to do more through 3 games than they ever did Nico at any point in him being at Tennessee." And I thought about it, and I said, that's probably why that guy runs a program. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just don't know that anyone could have expected that. I don't know that the most diehard, optimistic Tennessee fan could expect that through 3 weeks, Joey Aguilar was going to be called on to need to score a lot on Georgia, and did. At no point in his career, I don't care if he played 10 more years in Knoxville, was Nico Iamaleava ever going to tote the jock of the performance that Joey Aguilar turned in yesterday. First time ever for that combination of words on the show. But I feel it was necessary. I actually feel really good about Tennessee leaving this game. It's an expanded playoff era, so by no means is it the end of anything. More than any team, this is not a finished product. So I know if I'm Tennessee, I'm going to get guys back. I know I got a quarterback I can win with. I know I got some real good talent in that receiver room, probably underrated by me coming into the season. I know good and well quarterback was underrated by me. I just never could have expected it to click this quick. Never could have expected that. How in the world do you have what happened to them at the quarterback position and have it be an upgrade? That's one thing where once Heupel gets done, 38 years from now when he's done and he writes his memoirs, I hope he's at least honest and says, yeah, that one kind of fell in our lap. Now, once it did, we made the most of it, and we're really good, and hey, I'll give you credit there. But there's no way you could have designed this. So injuries, new quarterback, that's great. I feel good about Tennessee. Again, here's the caveat. It's evergreen. Not a perfect team. No one is. You just played a really good one yesterday, and you took them to the wire. The reset, though, that's necessary on Georgia is this. most of my big fears with Georgia have subsided as well. This game really absolved some fears that I had about either team. If I'm trying to advocate that I think they're going to be a playoff contender, that I think they're going to be SEC championship contenders, I stated my concerns with Tennessee. Not there so much anymore once they get healthy. With Georgia, my biggest concern was always going to be, all right, what can I get offensively? What can I get? Because I'm losing Carson Beck. And Carson Beck at his best, the Tennessee game last year, for example, is a guy that can go win a game for me. And, while nobody shed much of a tear when Carson Beck left because of the way it went down, Georgia fans then look at Gunnar Stockton and, just like me, probably say, all right, is this a limited amount that we can get out of him? Could we ever trust him to go win a game for us? No one really knows. Well, we know now. Yeah, you can trust him to go win a game. You sure can. If the big question mark about Georgia is defense, if the big question is not, can we squeeze enough juice out of the offensive sponge, but rather, can Kirby Smart squeeze enough out of the defensive sponge? If that's the lingering question for Georgia as we get into the second, third, and fourth quarters of this season, I'm fine with it. I'll take my chances on Georgia there. So Georgia's got the best odds to win the SEC as of right now. Texas is second. Alabama and LSU tied for third. I got to agree with that. Because if you tell me Georgia's not going to have some terminal offensive flaw, if they're not going to have some terminally low offensive ceiling, I watched them last year not be their vintage selves defensively. When it came time to smash someone up the side of the head with a sledgehammer, they did it to Texas twice. So I trust them defensively. Doesn't have to be vintage Georgia. Just opportunistic, and then every now and then, sledgehammer to the face. I trust them. If the offensive questions are answered, I trust them the rest of the way. So, lot of questions answered on both fronts. This was a really, really incredible game to be a part of. Afterwards, if you listen to Kirby in the post game, he flat out said, we probably didn't deserve to win that game. Now, I don't ever believe in saying that. I believe they did deserve to win the game. I believe the team that deserved to win the game won the game. Now, you may feel a little guilty because you got some breaks, but let me ask you this. What if instead of 38-38, it was 38-17 and Tennessee missed a field goal? Well, it would have been probably 30. It would have affected the total maybe or a second half line, but it wouldn't have affected the outcome. No. There's skill in putting yourself in position to benefit when the other guy catches a bad break or when injury happens or something like that. So, I'm going to disagree with Kirby and say Georgia absolutely deserved to win the game. Now, Tennessee did plenty enough to win the game, but they didn't take it when it was there. Georgia then did take it. So I do disagree with them. I think in that case, I think I have a little better feel about Georgia football than Kirby. It's unfortunate it happens that way, but it happens sometimes. Quick Trip fueled us all the way over there, all the way back. We drove over to Knoxville yesterday afternoon. I gotta send a little request to Danny White, the athletic director. He's been very forthcoming, been very transparent on the socials today, I'm told, about some of the new logistics around Neyland Stadium. Now, you feel very safe when you're there. Okay? The trade-off is the logistics were a nightmare yesterday. And your boy thought he was going to have to spend the night in the G10 parking garage there, and I've never had trouble getting out of that thing in the past. So this is constructive criticism. Because elsewhere, everything else, A-plus, Chamber of Commerce level experience. Let's figure out the logistics. Now, Quick Trip, no logistics problems. None. I probably wouldn't tell you if there were, but there weren't. So they fueled us all the way to Knoxville and back. A couple of quick trips on the way there, to and fro, as Meemaw would say. You get the cold brew on tap. Many more of you are finding that out as I emphasize not just visiting for gas. Go inside. I don't care if you paid with your card at the pump. You need to go in there. Friendly faces, warm customer service, but more importantly, even if the dude behind the counter is a jerk, which he never will be, but even if he was, if you got cold brew on tap in there, it's worth it. It's worth a visit. And they've got it. They've got it. And much more, of course. Raisinless trail mix I'm still working on, but much more. We appreciate them. Oh, what is that, a fighter jet flying over top of us, Jesse? It sounds like they're doing a flyover on a Friday before a game. We got a big crowd gathered live, and I thank you, and I ask you to sub to the channel. Because the sooner we get to 500K, the sooner I can do the celebration of your choice when we get to 500K. Let's talk about a game yesterday that did not shock me all that much. Bradley, here's a good endpoint for you. Georgia Tech beat Clemson yesterday, 24-21, and some were shocked by this outcome. And I was shocked as well, but I was shocked that people were shocked. I will grant you, not everyone's watched Georgia Tech this year, and maybe you watched Clemson in week 1 against LSU, but maybe you didn't watch them closely, and maybe you didn't watch them against Troy. Georgia Tech's a better football team than Clemson. So it was just a blessing to us that FanDuel was giving us points with Georgia Tech, because I just picked them to win outright, emphatically on the show last week, to the point where some people wondered, like, what's your deal? Well, one team knew their identity. One team had the better quarterback. One team was the better team. And I'm describing Georgia Tech. So if you watched the game yesterday, I'm not sure how you argue with that. But I do understand, if you didn't watch this Ford-Chalai game, that you may think, but it's Clemson, but it's Georgia Tech. Yeah, that doesn't really mean anything. Now, if you're talking about a matchup from 2021 or 2 or 16, yeah, it probably does mean something. These are different teams. These are not your Meemaw's Clemson Tigers, and these are not your Meemaw's Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. That really could be the end of the preview. Bradley, what happened there? That's a little concerning. If you're listening on podcast, you're lucky. I mean, the purge started to happen on one of our monitors back here. So I really hope people get what happened yesterday. I was in the Tennessee press box watching the walk-off field goal, which just, I think theatrically, if you were to introduce someone to college football who has never watched before, let's say you got a girlfriend, you really think that your relationship could get taken to the next step if she loved college football. You're probably right. But you need to indoctrinate her somehow. Show her the last 30 seconds of the Clemson-Georgia Tech game. Because anyone who watches that and says, nah, that's not for me, is not for you. Now, I don't want to be giving out relationship advice, but I think that's just basic life advice. This was unbelievable. Everyone is gathered around me in the Neyland Stadium press box, and we're all watching this game. We're glued to it. And people are like, what is Brent Key doing? And Brent Key's over there like this. He's just standing there like he's planned it all. You know why? Because they planned it all. And so we don't need the timeout. We got 16, 17 seconds. We're fine. We'll spot the ball. We'll run them off. We'll run them on. We'll drain one from 50-plus, and we'll go home. After we wear a backwards hat in the press conference and trash the AP poll, the only thing Brent Key did wrong yesterday is he did not publicly acknowledge the commissioner's poll, which has long since had his team ranked, and the architect of which picked his team to win outright. We don't need the credit. We don't need it. We're fine here. But, man, Georgia Tech yesterday wins the game 24-21. Now, again, you're going to have people who didn't watch the game and who are still married to logic from 10 years ago. So they think, oh, dude, Georgia Tech pulled a massive upset here, right? No, it's not a massive upset at all. It should happen. Again, I disagreed with the point spread. So there's that. And then people would probably think, oh, man, what kind of lucky breaks did Georgia Tech have to get to be in this thing? Hey, what if I told you Clemson needed lucky breaks to stay in the game? Kind of like in week 1. What if I told you Clemson needed some breaks for LSU not to house them in their own building? Because that's the reality of it. Clemson got lucky to still be in this thing. Now, luck, they had to execute on it. You know what I mean? Football luck is different than a scratch-off lottery ticket giving you $1,200 kind of luck. But there was a turnover on downs inside the 10 for Georgia Tech. They had to settle for a couple of field goals inside the Clemson 25. They botched a 4th down snap, which was horrendous execution. There was a 3rd and 22 late in the second quarter where Clemson's just given up the drive, and they convert, and then they end up going down there, and I think they scored on a 4th down later. All that stuff had to happen for Clemson to be in the game, guys. So I watched this through the lens of someone who did just that, watch the game. And I thought, better team's going to win this game. Frankly, it shouldn't have been that close. That's how I saw it. Optimistic Clemson friend hits me up after the game. This is a very optimistic Clemson fan. And he said, hey, there's still a long way to go in the season, which is true. But that's always said in a positive light. That's always said in a hopeful, optimistic sort of way. And it is true that there is a long way to go in the season. It's also true that while that could be good news for Clemson, it also could be bad news because you assume 1-2 is the worst it could get. 1-2 is not the worst it could get. That extra gear for Clemson's just not there. As a football team, I would argue as a program, that extra gear is not there. Now, you'll remember in spring and summer, I took a very measured approach on this because, hey, I could have just been wrong about it. So I chose to take the approach with Clemson that one of two things is going to happen here, and I have no clue which it's going to be. One is, yeah, there's a bunch of returning starters, but really they're just returning a bunch of guys who weren't really elite last year, and so you're just going to get more of the same. The difference is people are going to hype the same guys up a little bit more, and it's going to be a big disappointment, or they really are going to be one of the best teams in the country, and Dabo's going to have the ultimate I told you so dunk on the entirety of the college football public moment. Well, the latter is not going to happen. The former looks to be happening, and I don't really know what is going to come of this because this is a team that now needs to rewire its expectations. They're still alive, like mathematically. It's week 3, so no one's dead. I mean, you've still got one conference loss now. You could go to Charlotte and you could right the ship and get another shot at Tech or play Miami or play Florida State. Yeah, it could happen that way, but think about what we heard. Think about what maybe you just individually expected. Cade Klubnik's back this year with what I was told was going to be a really good offensive line, good receiver core. Now, I told myself that. I still kind of believe that. But this defense has got NFL guys all 3 levels, just everywhere. There were reasons for optimism, and I don't have that optimism. Clemson still has the 3rd best odds to win the league. Clemson and Florida State have the same odds to win the league. Let me tell you something about Clemson and Florida State. I'm saying those teams in the wrong order right now. I believe they play each other. I do believe that game happens, so I don't waste a lot of time on that. I was fine taking a wait-and-see approach on Clemson this year. Well, I have waited long enough, and I have seen enough. They're not a player in the national championship picture. As it turns out, they never were. So I feel a little foolish for spending the time that we did in the spring and summer on it. This is also, not to get 50,000 feet here because it's week 3 and we got a lot to talk about, but, I mean, we've probably got our answer on Dabo. Just this era of Clemson football. There's no knock on him. Guy's legacy has been secured for a long time, but the experiment for Dabo at Clemson was we're really going to kind of not delve into the portal. We're going to do it our way. The Clemson way is a different way. I don't doubt that. I don't think he's disingenuous when he says that. I just think that the Clemson way in 2025 is not one that's going to really put you in the hunt for a national championship. He's not unfulfilled. He's got multiple championship rings. They own the league for over a decade. So he's been there, he's done that. It's just this seasons change. What was that band? Expose? In the 80s, seasons change. Well, that's Clemson football right now. And it's this weird thing because Dabo can stay there kind of as long as he wants to, and it's not a crisis. They're going to win a lot of games this year. They'll always be a good, solid program as long as he's there. But I don't think there's really going to be fundamental change. There's a part of me that respects him for sticking to his principles and values. I've talked to you about this many times, but it's just tough for me when I know what Clemson has been, when I know what they could be if they just 20% course corrected. I watched Texas A&M last night with studs at receiver that they got out of the portal, and that being the difference in a game on the road at Notre Dame. And I think to myself, Clemson doesn't need 20 of those guys, but what difference would 2 or 3 or 5 guys over the course of a couple of portal cycles make at Clemson, and how little effort was actually put into exploring that? That's where I'd be if I were a Clemson fan. I do have good news for you, though. Since Georgia Tech won this game, we have our first padlock player of the year. You want to talk about a padlock stat? Haynes King is a padlock stat and an American icon. 20 of 28 for 211 in the passing game yesterday. But if you watch this, you know that the real stat line was 25 for 101. 25 what, Josh? Carries. Oh, Georgia Tech as a team ran the ball 25 times? No, friend. The quarterback, Haynes King, ran it 25 times for 101 yards and a touchdown. He was responsible. Just pop that paper thrice. He was responsible for 312 of their 358 total offensive yards. That's superhero stuff. That's what that is. They film a lot of movies in and around Atlanta. Haynes King, just play himself. That's superhero stuff. Brent Key and identity. He talked about it yesterday in the postgame, you know. He talked about toughness. There is not a coach out there going right now that doesn't talk about toughness. Everyone wants to be tough. Everyone preaches toughness. It's on everyone's wall. It's on the front of everyone's binder for their players to take home. But not everyone is. So how do you become tough? Well, you become tough by living it every day. You don't just say we're going to be tough this Saturday. You say we're going to be tough this Tuesday afternoon in April. You say we're going to be tough in every decision we make. Some of it has to do with football. Some of it has to do with how you carry yourself off the football field. It's just a way of life. I've always believed that there is a way that it can work at Georgia Tech. I've always believed it's insane that there's a program in Atlanta, Georgia, the capital of college football, the intersection of the SEC and the ACC, one of the most talent-rich areas in America. I've always thought it's insane that no one could find 25 kids per cycle to get into school there to win. Now Brent Key has. And he's done it in the most blue-collar way imaginable. They're just getting started there. They're just getting started. Now, here's what they need to be. He knows this, but I just want to caution the rest of America that was very late to the Georgia Tech party. So now they're going to try to make up for it by being the loudest person at the Georgia Tech party. They're not guaranteed anything here. And the reason I say that is because that Haynes King stat, 312 of 358, he can't do that every week. You can't have a quarterback do that stuff every week. And if the formula that they start to develop, if their identity offensively becomes so reliant on him carrying the ball 18, 20, 22, 25 times a game, well, then you're going to run into some random week where you're playing a much inferior opponent. You were favored by 18.5, even on the road, and it's just a slogfest in the fourth quarter. Why is that? Well, it's because when they sat around Monday of game prep, they said, dude, we can't run him like this week. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to have to win in a different way. And then you get to Saturday and you find out maybe you can't. That's the risk they run. And so that's why I'm trying to caution. It's one thing if he's just throwing it all over the place and the receiver room's full of animals and you've got no problem and you're razor sharp efficient. That's one thing. They're very reliant on him running the ball right now. Auburn, Jackson Arnold, I kind of feel the same way about him. There are a couple of guys out there actually right now. So beware the rat poison. It's very real, and now it's going to be heaped upon you at Georgia Tech, and I don't think they can play that style every week. So that's my concern. But that schedule is manageable. And there are going to be a lot of people talking this week about how there's such a clear path to Atlanta. There's not a clear path to Atlanta. The path is no clearer than it ever was before. You've gotten your way there maybe a quarter of the way. Now you're going to have to deal with expectations. So how competitively mature are you? And how diversified can you become offensively? Let's roll on. I didn't skip anything, did I, Bradley? No, I did not. Oh, man. Every sheet of paper is a classic game. Texas A&M 41, Notre Dame 40. We didn't have one 5-Chalai Classic yesterday. We had 2 5-Chalai Classics. This happened last year. You remember, we went to the Ohio State-Oregon game, 5-Chalai Classic. But earlier that same day, Penn State-USC, also a 5-Chalai Classic. And if I recall, that's the same day Ole Miss LSU played, and that was like a 4.5 Chalai game. Crazy stuff. So, yeah, man, I can't imagine those A&M fans that got to make that trip. That is, you talk about that for 50 years. You're telling your great-great-grandkids, that's a long time away. You're telling your kids and your grandkids one day, 2025, made the trip up to South Bend. And by the way, at that time, we hadn't won a ranked game in I don't know how long. And we go up there, and Buckner drops the extra point. Boy, there's a Boston Red Sox fan and a Notre Dame fan, and just the name Buckner, I don't care about the spelling. Imagine what that does to you. It draws a visceral reaction out of you. Anyway, that story is going to be great to tell. Signature win for Mike Elko, signature win for this program. I can't believe more people are not addicted to this sport if they watched this last night. You could be agnostic. You don't even know what an Aggie is. Fighting Irish, why they got to fight? Doesn't matter. Does not matter if you know anything. Just watch. Just look at that. It's unbelievable. So I'll tell you what I can't believe. I can't believe this Texas A&M offense answered the bell like that. I really was amazed. 32 carries for 128 yards. That's what they had last night, okay? That's supposed to be the way they win the game. That's supposed to be A&M. Their entire MO is we're going to punch you and punch you and punch you, and then we're going to punch you some more, and we're just going to be a bowling ball offensively. And Marcel Reed's going to do just enough, and he's a threat with his legs as well. But we're going to run the ball to win, and that's a formula we can take with us on the road. Yeah, they needed 41 points last night, and it was mainly off Marcel Reed's arm. And it's just not a combination of words that I thought would be coming out of my mouth. He was 17 of 37 for 360 yards, which is a very weird stat line. He's below 46% completion. And so if you told me, just say this out loud. Now, Notre Dame's going to score 40 at home. Your QB is going to be well below 50% completion percentage. You think to yourself, oh, well, hopefully we didn't get blown out, and let's regroup and get ready for conference play. And instead I said, no, but you're going to win. What? How are we going to win? Well, 86, 16, 45, 21, 24, 31, 18, 34. That sounds like Monument Park at Yankee Stadium. That sounds like all the retired numbers at Kyle Field. No, those were pass plays for Marcel Reed last night. And it could have been worse. He had several overthrows. Other guys were open. What happened to the game I love? No, what happened to the Notre Dame secondary I love? That was what I kept thinking to myself. What is this? Whom are these people? They're not Notre Dame defensive backs. I saw many people say Tyler Buckner cost us a game. Tyler Buckner didn't cost you anything but an extra point. Your defense cost you a game. That's insane. A holder? Now, it is fascinating that Tyler Buckner's career arc will include starting at quarterback for Notre Dame at one point. He started a game at Alabama, took a little lacrosse detour, whomst amongst us hasn't, and then ends up being a holder because Steve Angeli transferred out and he did not hold what he was supposed to, immunity, and they miss an extra point. But Notre Dame scoring 40 at home should be good enough to beat everyone in the country. And it wasn't because Chris Ash, I don't know. I know you don't have the same personnel you did last year. This is Notre Dame. Pass rush is markedly worse than last year. Tackling is a big issue for them. Their secondary, outside of maybe the best corner in the country, is embarrassingly bad. And I just don't know how that happens over the span of a few months. Like, it's almost to the point where you've watched through 2 games, especially this game being a desperation game at home off a bye week. You got to try to be that bad in some cases. I don't know what's going to happen with them. On one hand, they've got 2 losses by a combined 4 points to teams that I think are really good. It's not the end of the world. It's nothing like that. But they got a long way to go defensively, a long way to go. Or else they got to win in shootout fashion. Feel bad for C.J. Carr because I think he's played plenty well enough to be a 2-0 quarterback. But instead, here they are 0-2. I don't know, man. But you remember our view on Texas A&M, which got a slight amount of criticism, as I recall. So they were bad to finish the year last year defensively. Mike Elko goes off. Now, he didn't throw a chair in the postgame of the bowl game. He did yesterday on the sideline. We're always in favor of taking it out on the chair, not the person, because it's illegal to do the latter. But we thought A&M's interior defensive line could be a concern here. And they got a good offensive line. And they got a really good group of tailbacks. And we really believe in receiver there. More on that in a second. And Marcel Reed, I went out there in the spring. I talked to Colin Klein myself. And one of the first things out of his mouth was, vertical pass game, I believe in it for us this year. I really think we've got the people to do it. Now, I listened to that. I filed it away. I told you that like half a dozen times. Well, it came time to prove it last night, and they proved it. And it was there far more than I ever thought it may be there. But you know what else was there? Transfer receivers. According to our friends at TexAgs, listen to this. This is the difference in a program like Clemson and a program like A&M. A&M looked and said, we may have some deficiency at receiver. Scratch that. We're not championship caliber at receiver, and our goal is to win a championship here. So you know what they did? They went and got Mario Craver. They went and got Casey Concepcion last year. Transfer receivers for Texas A&M so far this year, 33 catches, 670 yards, and 7 touchdowns. They're averaging 20.3 yards per catch. Because that's what you do. When you've got championship aspirations, but you got a little roster deficiency, you go get the players you need to get. And don't give me culture, because they got one at A&M too. If you didn't see them fight last night, if you don't believe Texas A&M culture was on full display last night, you're lying to yourself. What you think that magically the only kids that can adopt and emulate your culture are in high school? You don't think there are any kids out there in the portal any given year? It's always been nonsense. So good for them for going and getting the players they needed to. They will always be majority high school football recruiting, but this is Texas A&M. Should be one of the premier programs in the country. I always argue with people because of the cannot have not thing. But man, they have hit big time on receiving talent. And it's another page, not quite a chapter even. I just think it's a page in the Mike Elko era, the Mike Elko book. He's the real deal. He got overlooked when he got hired there because he got hired in the same cycle as DeBoer did at Alabama. So everyone was talking about Saban out, DeBoer in, what's he going to be? Not a lot of people talked about Elko, but they should, because he's really, really good. And now you're seeing, year 2, you're seeing it take on a little bit more of his identity. Here's what he'll see, though, that I think a lot of people won't. He'll see things that were unacceptable in a win. You can have a signature win and still have a lot of things that are unacceptable that you know could have cost you a game. Just because they didn't cost you the game doesn't mean you shouldn't attack them and try to fix them every bit the same you would as if they lost the game. So that is what I always look for, because it's one thing to get people's attention when you lose. That's easy. Can you get guys' attention when they go to South Bend, Indiana, and win 41-40, and everyone, including me, is calling it a signature win, and you're still undefeated, and now everyone's talking about your schedule? Look at it right there. Auburn comes there. You'll be off a bye. Auburn will be off the Oklahoma game. Then you got Mississippi State. Florida doesn't look nearly as good. You go to Arkansas, whatever. You go to LSU. LSU offensively a little limited right now. You go to Missouri after that. South Carolina does not look like what they once looked like. Arch can barely complete a forward pass right now. Everyone's going to talk about how workable that schedule is. Just worry about you. Just worry about you. This is not advice from Mike Elko. If he wants to take it, that's fine. It's just the expectation market out there is going to really ramp up on Georgia Tech and Texas A&M. And I don't want to incite a panic or anything, but you know they'll probably lose some games this year. Contrary to what yesterday told you, they probably will. No losers at Academy unless you try and go when they're closed. Scratch that. You can go to Academy when they're closed, academy.com. You can. I was obviously in Knoxville, Tennessee yesterday, so there was just an ocean of Academy everything. The little kiddos playing basketball on the play school goal in the parking garage 4 hours before kickoff, probably purchased at Academy. Mom and Dad sitting in the chairs over here, I know where they were purchased. They say Academy. Are they getting sunburned? No, they're not. Not because of sunscreen, but because of the canopy over top of them. Purchased at Academy. Oh, look, a grill. Is that Traeger? Is it Pit Boss? Doesn't matter. Both of them available at Academy. And you'll notice I'm not reading anything. We don't even own a teleprompter. I just know Academy because I go in there a lot, and we've been partners with them for a long time. But you may never have been there before. We don't judge you. But I do think you need to make a change there because you probably just heard a lot of things that you're going to end up purchasing anyway. You need these things in your life along with some Big Lead Chew in the checkout line. Academy's got it. Academy's got it, and academy.com has it if you can't get there in person, and we appreciate that. Got a lot of folks, tens of thousands, watching live. Just make sure you're subscribed. How are we going to get to 500,000 if you're not subscribed? I ask. And I try. Actually, our data indicates, what would you say, Jesse? Probably 500 to 1,000 people are rage watching right now. But the other 90% are here with good intentions. So just make sure you subscribe. Now, you may think like I do. I don't want to subscribe. I can watch it no matter what. Why do I need to subscribe? Well, technically you don't. You don't need to do anything. I would strongly ask that you do it because it doesn't affect you. Like once you do it, you forget about it. It just helps us. And it reinforces that we get to do this stuff. It's free. Look at these lights. They're on tonight because a lot of people subscribed. So it just helps us out. Let's move on. Plenty more games to talk about. There's still a big stack here. It's a jam-packed show. Jam-packed show. So LSU beats Florida, huh? 20-10. Game felt weird to me. Did you watch this whole game? I even asked my LSU brethren. I know you watched it. How'd you feel about the game? The Chalice rating is not kind to this game. Now, we're just using a basic viewability rating. This was an ugly game to watch. So we give it 1 Chalice. Now, it doesn't matter if you're an LSU fan. You got the win. But it never really settled in. Like the Georgia-Tennessee game settled in. It got a flow to it. Notre Dame A&M's crazy, but it had a rhythm and a flow to it. This was just like, if you've ever gotten too tight into a parking lot and it's drive, reverse, drive, reverse, drive, reverse, drive. You never really got it in drive. You never really got it in reverse. You were just stuck because you pulled your Yukon into the Piggly Wiggly parking lot and you didn't really respect the space issues. Couldn't be Phoenix City, Alabama. Me and Mimo used to walk to the pig on Somerville Road. So, look, when the opponent is losing a game, don't interrupt them. I credit LSU more than anything last night for just not interrupting Florida as they were in the process of historically handing over a game. The easiest padlock stat of the week, 5-1. That is how decisively LSU won the turnover battle in this game. And they lost Whit Weeks on the opening drive for a targeting foul that, you can complain about it or you can work to elect me as commissioner of this sport. Because on day one, as college football commissioner, I will address the egregious nature of targeting in this sport. I'm not doing away with targeting, but the fact that we don't have flagrant 1, flagrant 2 type tiered foul systems for targeting in this sport is insane. We're just throwing guys out of games for playing hard. There's not an ounce of malicious intent in how Whit Weeks hit that dude. He's just playing. And all of a sudden, he's out of a game. Why? I don't know. We're scared we're going to get sued. Yeah. Well, maybe think before you write the rules so that in the future, your best explanation is, well, we already wrote the rules. We can't be perceived as going backwards on them. Pathetic. Drugs. Pathetic. It was not the prettiest night. However, the D showed up, immunity. And as long as you got Blake Baker down there, you got a shot. Blake Baker, an American hero. He now has LSU bordering on the top 10 in points per game in the country. And believe me, even that's an anomaly. There aren't 11 defenses better than LSU in the country right now. They just happen to have played a couple of decent teams. So LSU's playing lights out. But you know what I kept thinking about last night and this morning and this afternoon? As I was thinking about how do I discuss Florida? You could do the Napier hot seat stuff. We'll have plenty of time for that. But you remember a couple of weeks ago, it's going to be weird that I bring this game up. You remember when Arizona State played Mississippi State? I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago. And Arizona State was down 17-3 on the road. And Sam Leavitt had been terrible in the first half. And Kenny Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo and that offensive staff, they got together and they said, all right, we're 2 scores down. We need to come from behind. But our quarterback ain't feeling it. So we're not going to throw the ball. And sure enough, 32 of their next 39 plays were running plays. And you know what they did? They took the lead. Now, they ended up losing the game, but they came all the way back and they took the lead, playing to the strengths of what they were capable of that afternoon. I mentioned that because Florida did none of this last night. I thought it was one of their worst efforts offensively because they looked at a quarterback that quite clearly didn't have it, and they still had him throw the ball 49 times. He threw the ball 25 times in the second half. 3 picks in the second half. Egregious, like inexcusable picks. Defense is playing lights out for Florida. I mean, their defense has played its tail off. It has given up. You know what? I'll talk more about it in a second. But it just that offensive line and that running back stable should be such that if that defense is playing the way it is, you ought to be comfortable that you can run your way back into a game. And they, for whatever reason, not after 1, not after 2, not after 3, not after 4, but after 5 picks, they're still having DJ throw the ball. And he clearly is not seeing the field. He's seeing 10 defenders out there, and Baker's allowed to play with 11. It was an ugly night. Now, Brian Kelly afterwards had some stuff to say. So, I got to be real with you. A lot of people have had a lot to say about Brian Kelly. I'm going to play you the soundbite in a second. Brian Kelly does not have a great offense right now. He knows that. The media down there knows that. Now, there are 2 different ways to look at and listen to what I'm about to play. Now, I got to tell you, if I'm Brian Kelly, if I'm the coach of LSU, and I just beat Florida, this is probably what I would sound like. Roll it, Bradley.
Brian in the back, I know you love these immediate post-game sessions, but what are you seeing with your offense?
Stop. Really? Is that the first question? We won the game 20-10. Try another question. What do you want me to tell you? I just laid it out for you. We played the game to win the game. We played the game to win the game.
All right. How about third down then? What is going on with third down?
It's one game. Last game, we were great on third down. You're looking at this from the wrong perspective. LSU won the football game. Won the game. I don't know what you want from me. What do you want? You want us to win 70-0 against Florida to keep you happy?
No, I think people want to know why you can't run the ball, quite honestly.
We can run the ball. Did you see the last play of the game? That's all you need. You just need one. There's a ridiculous questions. And I'm getting tired of it. That football team just worked their tail off to get an SEC win, and you want to know what's wrong. You know what? You're spoiled. You're spoiled. This team is 17-1 at night. 17-1. Give them some respect. How about that? Give them some respect instead of micro-analyzing every little thing. This is ridiculous. For a group of seasoned reporters, that kind of question is so out of line.
Yeah, so look, there's a lot of validity to what he's saying technically. And if I were the LSU coach, I'm just coming off the field, I know how tough it is to win those games. I mean, you got Florida's max effort. They played poorly at the quarterback position, but you got the max effort, and you won the game. The last thing you want to be doing is getting criticized. So if I'm Brian Kelly, I'd probably sound like that. But if I were Florida, or if I were an LSU fan, I'd have those concerns. So the question's totally valid. You know, maybe ask it 5th instead of 1st. I don't know. Ask it Monday or Tuesday instead of Saturday. They're 108th in points per game offensively right now. Like, clearly, LSU's offense is a shell in terms of what people thought it would be capable of so far. Now, that's through 3 games, and they've played 2 really tough defensive opponents. Last week kind of was what it was against Louisiana Tech. I will even give you benefit of doubt. That was like a letdown spot, look-ahead spot. So maybe you've just been in a letdown spot for your inferior opponent, and you played 2 really good defenses, and Brian Kelly's right. Maybe Brian Kelly is telling the God's honest truth that they called that game last night in the best manner to win that game. They realized, hey, the other guy doesn't have his fastball or his curveball or his changeup, so they keep turning the ball over. We don't really need to try and hand it back to him. I mean, Nussmeier had an egregious pick of his own last night, so he's still got that in him a little bit. Let's just pack it in. We'll be happy with the win here, and we'll move on down the road. When we need to open the offensive briefcase, it'll be there. You know, the reason I'm not going to get worked up about that is because if he's right, he's got a game at Ole Miss coming up, a game at Vandy. He's got Texas A&M on the schedule. He's got to go to Alabama, and he's got to go to Oklahoma. And I can promise you they're not holding all them to 10 points. As much respect as I have for Blake Baker, American icon. I don't know that I don't know that every one of those games is going to be one where LSU can afford to sit there and just grind out a win. They may have to do what Georgia did yesterday. They may have to do what Texas A&M did yesterday. Can they? I don't feel like they could right now. But Brian Kelly knows his team better than me. And like I said, it's not like they play a bunch of tomato cans the rest of the year where we'll never know. Either way, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. You know what? Maybe they're not good right now and they'll get better over the course of the season too. That's another possibility. There's a third possibility, and that is Brian Kelly knows that his offense is sort of permanently limited this year, and he's trying to enjoy the wins while they can get them. That's a very pessimistic view, but I'm in the interest of offering every viewpoint. That's on the table. It's still only week 3. We're just not going into week 4. There's still a lot we don't know. I was thinking about the entire SEC last night and thinking about how, forget about trying to predict it in the preseason. I've given you and myself 3 weeks. Are you any closer to being able to predict the SEC right now? I'm not, but I can tell you one thing I know. And this one's going to be tough for me, considering what I thought I knew in the preseason. But we got to do it. We do it every week. Ladies and gentlemen, our special musical guest, Sarah McLachlan. Florida is this week's Sarah McLachlan special. Hit it, Prez. The Florida drive chart is horrific from yesterday. Field goal, interception, 3 and out, punt, touchdown, interception, punt, interception, punt, interception, interception. And that's it. That's an entire season's worth of picks in one 3.5-hour game. Florida has allowed 2 offensive touchdowns through 3 games, and they are 1-2. This defense is being wasted worse than any Heisman caliber quarterback in the history of Lincoln Riley teams. This is horrible to watch. Napier is 16-21 versus FBS opponents at Florida now. There are 121 FBS teams with fewer picks this season than DJ Lagway had in one evening against LSU. And Florida still has games at Miami, Texas, at A&M, Georgia, at Ole Miss, at Tennessee, Florida State. They still play, according to the esteemed Associated Press Top 25 rankings, the number 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 13, and 15 teams in the country. So if it feels bad now, don't worry, it's going to get a whole lot worse. The Sarah McLachlan special, the completely inept and neutered Florida offense. We move on. I hate to do it. Some people thought in the chat that we had forgotten the Sarah McLachlan special. No, we just buried it a little bit later in the show. Hey, did you see Alabama yesterday? We learned something, didn't we? Here's what we learned. It turns out, in this 38-14 win, that if you give Ty Simpson time, he can look like Dan Marino. And he was 24 of 29 for 382, 4 touchdowns. He was also their leading rusher. So I told you after that Week 1 Florida State game, for someone who picked this team to win the national championship, I was more hurt than most. And I told you, this game right there, that's the next game where my mind could be changed because I was completely out. And my mind can be changed. It's not going to get changed against Wisconsin. You know why? Because Wisconsin's inferior to you. Now, to be clear, I'm not questioning the effort. Alabama showed really good effort, really good fire. Defense has bounced back in a big way. But you still aren't running the ball. Now, if getting Jam Miller back is all it's going to take for you to run the ball, which I remain skeptical about, but I'll grant you it's a possibility, okay. But you're not showing me that against Wisconsin. You got to show me that against Georgia and the remainder of your conference schedule. Because I don't know, as good as Ty Simpson looked yesterday, if I'm just going to be comfortable blindly counting on him to go win games single-handedly. It's not fair for him. Just like it's not fair to ask Klubnik to do it or Nussmeier to do it, I'm not going to ask Ty Simpson to do it. I hope they don't. So that's like the most negative game reaction I could possibly give when you blow out a Big Ten opponent. No. It's very good for Alabama. Very good. They looked utterly dominant yesterday. The thing that we all know is not every game's going to be comfortable. And there's going to come crunch time 3rd and 5 moments where you need to be able to pick up those 5 yards on the ground. You need to be able to move the chains. You need to be able to get tough yardage and convert and possess the football and control the flow of the game and limit possessions for the other guy. And if you can't run the ball, you can't do those things. And if you can't do those things, remember, you already lost the game. So you don't have a whole lot more wiggle room. I feel like a hater. I'm not a hater. I am just a remains to be seener. And you were not going to convince me of anything against UL Monroe and Wisconsin. All due respect to the Warhawks and the Badgers. Now Bama's got a bye. Then they go to Georgia. And that's where it gets real again. Vandy made it real for South Carolina last night. Yes, we nailed the prediction. No, I have no idea how this game would have gone had Lenora Sellers not gotten hurt. Now, South Carolina offensively hadn't been lighting the world on fire with him. So I'm not going to disrespect Vandy and claim it would have been any different. But I know if you're minus 3 turnovers, you're not winning anything, Lenora Sellers or not, and South Carolina was. The opening drive touchdown and then nothing the rest of the game, that's pretty jarring. It was just, it's been a hollow feeling team so far to me this year. And you've noticed every week in the JP poll, South Carolina's dropped. Every week in the commissioner's poll, South Carolina has dropped. So this result really wasn't a shock. I thought Vanderbilt would win this game. They felt like the better team to me so far. You got to get past the logos, guys. The gap in the SEC is not what it used to be. It's not at all. So you need to ignore, again, that's not your Meemaw's Vanderbilt Commodores logo. And I don't know what your Meemaw's Vanderbilt logo even was, nor do I know what her South Carolina logo was. I just know that this league is compacted right now. Just it doesn't really matter what the point spread would have been 13 years ago. It's not the way it is anymore. Vanderbilt's undefeated. What are they ranked? Oh, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but they are undefeated. Good for them. You look at the schedule there. Got Georgia State, nemesis, rival, revenge spot, Georgia State, Utah State, and then they go to Alabama. Another revenge game for the other guy on October 4th. They still got LSU, Missouri, Texas, Auburn, Tennessee. Yeah, Vandy's got a long way to go, but good for them so far. Texas and UTEP. What a clinic. People paid to watch this game yesterday. 27-10. Not at the end of the first quarter. No, this was the whole game. Obviously, anyone who watched this knows what I'm about to say is true. Something is very off about Arch Manning. It could be physical. It could be mental. Don't really care. I hope it's... Actually, I don't even know what I hope it is. But something's wrong. He was 11 of 25 for 114 yards and 1 touchdown and 1 pick. And I don't have much to say about this game. It just doesn't look good. And it is the ultimate you got your work cut out for you type of project right now for Steve Sarkisian. And I trust Sark as much as I do anyone on this. But, man, we were the ones who were slow playing the Arch hype. And even I'm very, very underwhelmed with the performance. And I never thought the dude was the Heisman favorite. And I never used the word generational or elite in anything other than a joking manner. Not a disrespectful way, but this is tough even by my standards or estimations to watch right now. What's not tough is watching Miami. Because Miami may be the best team in the country right now. Now, there are certain people down there who probably want me to downplay this. They just played on the CW. They're hoping no one saw the game yesterday. Miami 49-12. We also expected this one. We told you last week that point spread was very, very misleading. South Florida had just beaten Boise. They beat Florida. They were 17.5-point dogs. Miami's fumbled these kind of opportunities before. Alex Golesh has made these games close before. This was a horrible dynamics spot. It was a horrible mismatch. And we expected a blowout, and we got a blowout, and this Miami offense is strong. And I'm going to put something out there. I was talking to a couple of Miami buddies, and they hesitantly agreed with me. So I want to throw something out there, and let's just let it marinate for a little while. Miami's big question to me, offensively, was not Carson Beck. The big question was, how are you going to replace your top half dozen pass catchers from last year? I think their receiving core may be better than it was last year. Early, small sample size, And having a better quarterback, well, not a better quarterback, what in the world? I mean, they had the best in the country last year. But having a really good quarterback there and a new blend of talent, it just may be that this blend is better. And you know what else they don't have to do? Score 45 every week. They can, but they don't have to because they also happen to have a defense this year, which is a novel concept. So they look good, and the questions keep getting answered. That wide receiver room's not a weakness for them. That secondary, still waiting on someone to test it, but it may not be a weakness either. And if that's the case, Miami doesn't really have a whole lot of weaknesses. So, cannot versus have not. The age-old question. We're going to apply it to Miami now. Ole Miss beat Arkansas yesterday, 41-35. Sam Pittman now drops to 7-18 in one-possession games at Arkansas. And Lane Kiffin, he likes the boat. He likes the beach. It sounded like he went down to the Caribbean and just got an island chain to start at quarterback. Trinidad Chambliss from Ferris State University last year. And he just wins with him. That's the backup quarterback at Ole Miss. Many of you had to wait until yesterday at kickoff to find that out. They had 475 yards total offense, 7 of 7 in the red zone. I almost feel like yawning as I read this off. I watch so many teams out there struggle to chew gum and walk at the same time with all of their starters in. And then Lane Kiffin's like, Trinidad what? I don't care. Where did he play? Ferris? What? The big circular? Ferris State. Yeah, put him in, whatever. And he just draws up the plays in the dirt, and they're 8 of 12 on third down, and they win. And they don't cover because that's not something Lane Kiffin believes in, but they win. And now they've got Tulane coming in there. Is that this week? Yeah, it is. That'll be fun. And then LSU. And I assume Austin Simmons will be back. So that's tough to listen to Sam Pittman talk about those one-possession games, by the way. Not fun. Everyone loves Sam Pittman. That's not fun. What is fun is we are going to – oh, you know what I didn't do, Bradley? My bad. I didn't announce that we're going to Lincoln, Nebraska this week. And if you go to the Pate State store right now, patestateMaterial.com, the Fall Don't Lie tour, we have a new T-shirt every week, for the new destination for the tour that week. Collector's items, they tell me, it's 1 week only, and then they're never available again. So I've never been to Nebraska in my life. I've never been to the state of Nebraska. I've never been to the University of Nebraska. I've never been to Lincoln. I've never been to the stadium there. But you know what? The Bussin' Bowl is happening this week. So Will Compton going to be there. Taylor Lewan going to be there. Fellow podcaster Matt Rule, I'm told, is going to be in the house because he also happens to be the head coach of Nebraska. How could we miss this? How could we miss this, and how could you not go to PateStateMaterial.com right now and see the limited edition 1 week only T-shirt commemorating this? And we have one of those every week. Just so happens this one says Lincoln, Nebraska. Looking forward to that. There's a ton of stuff in the Pate State store. Not just that. That Ramen Noodle Express shirt, Savannah State has been wearing that thing around the house. So she's approved it. It's better than any endorsement I could give. Bad news, ladies and gentlemen. Bad news on the job security front. It's that time of year. 2 head coaches got fired today, Brent Pry and DeShaun Foster. So already we've got coaching searches ramping up at Virginia Tech and UCLA. I wanted to talk about Pry first. He was 16-24 entering his 4th season. He was 3-8, 7-6, 7-6. They started 0-3. It really felt weird. It felt like a doomed season to start out because they got gutted by the portal. They lost some coaches. And ironically, his first and last game at Virginia Tech, he lost to Old Dominion. They trailed 31-0 yesterday to Old Dominion. So it was done. They won double-digit games every year from 2004 to 2011 under Frank Beamer. Now, I saw some people speculating about how good this job is. And that's a question best left for agents. I don't think too terribly highly of it. I think incredibly highly of the history of the program. What you worry about is what if Frank Beamer was really good and otherwise this isn't a good job? That's like a concern that I would have if I were a Virginia Tech fan. Now, I'm a college football fan. I love Virginia Tech, love Lane Stadium, love the tradition there. So, I mean, I very, very much miss this being a national title player. Yes, kids, Virginia Tech once upon a time was a national championship player. And I hope they can be again, but I was looking, Nakos and Andy Staples and Chris Lowe, they sort of collaborated on an article over on on3.com today about some of the potential replacements. Now, I got to be honest with you. Alex Golish's name was on that list. There's not a prayer. I'm leaving USF for Virginia Tech if I'm Golish. I can do better than that. I'm just being honest with you. I can do better than that. Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech is going to have his name thrown out there some. Look, I'd recommend to all these guys, if your stock is that high right now, you need to understand that it's not going to fade and you will have better opportunities. Like there will be other jobs come open. Will Stein at Oregon, same thing. Same thing. Like everyone knows those guys are going to get jobs. But you gotta have the right deck of cards, especially if you got a name that's a hot commodity, before you just go grab the first one. No, don't necessarily do that. The portal's open. You know. That's the way these things work these days. The portal opens the moment your coach gets fired. Now, normally it's the end of the season, but that's not the case here. Nor is that the case for UCLA with DeShaun Foster. So the portal's open for the next 30 days starting tomorrow. That means those guys can leave tomorrow. And since they haven't played 4 games this year yet, every one of them that is eligible to have a redshirt year can count this year as a redshirt year. So if I've played 2 games or 3 games as a starting defensive tackle at Virginia Tech, I could transfer to Auburn tomorrow. I can't play this year, but what I can do is take a redshirt year, and so this year never even happened, and I'm there. And I'm not at Virginia Tech, by the way, so they're still trying to field a team. UCLA still trying to field a team. By the way, speaking of UCLA, is Nico Iamaleava staying out there? Don't know. Haven't talked to him. Have no idea. DeShaun Foster also got fired today by UCLA. That's what happens when you pay New Mexico $1.2 million to come in your building and they beat you 35-10. I don't really blame DeShaun Foster because he never should have had the job. I would have taken the UCLA job if they offered it to me. It's not his fault. Like, he didn't offer himself the job. A completely inept athletic director offered him the job. And I don't think that athletic director will be afforded the opportunity to offer anyone else the job. Because knowing some of the internals around UCLA like I do now that I've spoken to some people out there, I think there's probably a healthy amount of churn just above and beyond the head coaching position that's coming. But it's very, very interesting because that is a very, what was the word Stuart Mandel I saw used earlier today? Very apathetic fan base at best sometimes. It is by far the second most important program in its own city. It's got a stadium that is 45 minutes to an hour away from campus. And the NIL situation is such that they're way more organized for basketball than they are for football. But hey, you get to play in the Big Ten. So glad that we broke the Pac-12 apart for this, by the way. Just fantastic job by all parties involved out there. Bravo, by all means. Let's fly guys to Rutgers for a conference game and Maryland for a conference game for a few extra dollars. Now, are we going to completely implode an entire conference for no good reason? And are we going to suck and hire poorly? Of course we are. We're UCLA. But we'll have that Big Ten sticker on our helmet. And that's what really counts. No one else in the Big Ten's complaining. You notice, like in the SEC, Vanderbilt's good. Mississippi State just beat the defending conference champ from the Big 12. Everyone's trying in the SEC. The bottom third of the Big Ten is a wasteland. And you think Ohio State's complaining about that? You think Michigan, you think Penn State and Oregon are complaining about that? They love it. They hope nothing changes. I mean, imagine Kirby Smart at Georgia being able to know that South Carolina was Maryland. Imagine him being able to know that Vanderbilt was actually UCLA. Imagine how great that would be. Hey, it's great to be Ryan Day. It's great to be Sharon Moore once he comes back from suspension. It's great to be Dan Lanning. They hope nothing changes. Add some more teams to the Big Ten, as long as they don't actually take winning seriously. So where are they going to go on this job? Because I don't know how attractive this job is. You've got to get your administrative affairs in order before you hire a head coach. I don't even know who's going to hire the head coach right now. And then, secondarily, soon to become primary, what kind of quality of job is this? You think about the guarantees. If I'm a hot commodity, the guarantees I'm going to need, NIL-wise, before I come out there are plenty. And I don't know that they exist right now. But if they do, let me give you some advice. Get someone from the South. Get someone from the South who is completely off his rocker, 25 hours a day invested in recruiting. There's a guy in Eugene, Oregon who lives that life. And I'm not saying there's another Dan Lanning around the corner. That's your blueprint. Find that kind of guy and get him out on the West Coast, and he's going to make some people uncomfortable, and he's going to wake some people up, and there may be some dead fruit on the tree that he's got to shake loose, and it's not going to be an overnight turnaround because you didn't drive it in the gutter overnight. But the UCLA job's open as well. Very interesting. Oh, my nose was itching the whole segment, Bradley, but I held off. They're watching us in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, Little Rock, Arkansas, and Monroe, Georgia. We have an issue we have to talk about. Unfortunately, I have in my hand, hot off the presses, the Week 4 edition of the AP poll. It is a disaster. Probably the worst I've seen them spit out so far this year. Bradley is putting it up on the screen right now. No problem with Ohio State being number one. Hey, let me ask you something. What in the world has Penn State done to be the number 2 team in the country? And for that matter, look who number 4 is. Miami's number 4. On what planet have Penn State and LSU outplayed Miami so far this year? Miami's beaten Notre Dame, who, by your own admission, not mine, is still a ranked team. And then they just slaughtered USF yesterday. Meanwhile, Penn State is skipping past high school teams, and LSU's struggling to score 20 on anyone, and Miami's behind them. Interesting, but I can't spend a whole lot of time on that because I have much bigger fish to kill. Not even fry, just outright kill here. Oregon 6, yeah, that's good. FSU 7 is good. I know this hurts a lot of people's pride. Texas is not a top 10 team right now. Texas has lost to the only good team they've played. And then they looked very, very lethargic in wins against San Jose State and UTEP. And they're 8. Why? For that matter, what's Illinois doing in the top 10? Now, I don't have a problem with Illinois in isolation, but I just want to ask you something. In fact, I want to kind of skip over the whole 11 through 15 area because that's good to me. OU, Iowa State, Ole Miss, Bama, Tennessee, that's fine. Mine will probably look like a version of that. We got a big problem. The AP poll is an illegitimate product, okay? So Illinois is sitting at number 9 right now. Georgia Tech's at 18, and Vanderbilt is at number 20. I ask you, on what planet has Illinois done more to warrant their ranking than Vandy and Georgia Tech? Vandy and Georgia Tech are classic examples of, hey, we didn't even invite you to the party, and now you showed up and we have no idea where to put you. That's the AP poll. It's like we got a pre-existing notion, an idea about Illinois. They haven't done anything to screw it up yet. You know, their best win's Duke. Otherwise, we don't even remember who they played. But they haven't done anything to screw it up. But then there's Vandy. Vandy went on the road and smoked Virginia Tech. And then they went on the road and they beat South Carolina handedly. I guess we got to rank them. Where? 20? I don't know. Georgia Tech went to Colorado, -3 turnovers in the first quarter, still win. And then they come home and they beat Clemson. Should have been more emphatic than it was. Oh, man, they're good too? Well, we got to put them in there somewhere. I mean, don't put them too high. It's Georgia Tech. It's just Georgia Tech. 18th? Yeah, that's fine. Illinois, though. I ran my mouth about them all spring, and I put them on the cover of this preview magazine I publish, and I wrote articles about them, you know. So I had them preseason top 10. I got to keep them top 10. Drugs. That's why this thing is being laughed at. It should be laughed at. The commissioner's poll in the next 2 or 3 weeks will overtake the AP poll as the definitive rankings viewpoint on college football in this country. Again, give me 2 or 3 weeks, and we will overtake the AP poll. In the meantime, I regret to inform you Notre Dame, according to our friends at the AP, is a ranked team as of sundown on Sunday, September 14th. Why? Well, they haven't won a game yet, but hear me out. No, I don't want to hear you out. That part where you said they haven't won a game yet, that was kind of all I needed to hear. Yeah, but you don't have the whole picture. I think you may not have the whole picture. I think you have a picture that doesn't actually exist. I think the picture is this. You had a preconceived idea of what Notre Dame was. That's okay, we all did. The difference is some of us have watched them play. They haven't won a game. They've had 2 tries. They haven't won a game. And so we're going to drop them for now, and then we're going to let them play the rest of their season because, you see, we know Notre Dame eventually will win games. And that's where part 2 of the picture that doesn't exist yet actually exists in your mind, and that is you expected them to be something, and they haven't been that yet. But since their starting point was top 10, you think they've, quote-unquote, dropped to 24. And then you expect them to go on to do something. Like half of you think they'll still be 10-2. Well, you know what? If they win 10 in a row, then we can adjust accordingly. But they haven't yet. So what you thought would be hasn't been. What you think will be should have no bearing on a team's current ranking, and yet there sits Notre Dame at 24. This AP poll is not worth the paper it was printed on. And I know that because I told Bradley, don't even print it out. See? There's nothing even on this piece of paper. I had to make a graphic. Every day that this thing remains in circulation, every day that the commissioner's poll has not overtaken this, every day that ESPN goes on the air with the number of the AP ranking next to those teams instead of the commissioner's poll is a day that this country drifts further away from God. We got to get back. We got to course correct. That's what we've got to do. The AP poll is pathetic. This week, and balls are in their court. Our balls are in their court, as Meemaw would say. They can correct it, but that would require watching the games with a tactful eye. And I just don't get the sense that AP voters are that interested in college football. I really don't. Not all of them. These ballots are public, by the way. A lot of them are good. Not all of them. FanDuel, the exclusive odds provider of the show, already has Week 4 lines up. I know that because I'm about to give you 3 of them as my best bets, early best bets. FanDuel just showed you a little while ago the odds to win conferences. It's kind of interesting to watch coming out of a Saturday because they adjust. And right now, like the odds to win the SEC, it looks a lot different than it did in July. But if you think that maybe there's some fool's gold out there, well, you need to go bet it. And if you think that maybe a team's being sold too early, go bet it. Or if you think that maybe Haynes King is an underdog to win the Heisman right now, you're right. There's some good value to be had there. You can go bet it. And if you are a new sign-up right now, you can go through that QR code there or just fanduel.com/Josh Pate. Any new customer bets $5. If it hits, you win $300. Let me make sure you understand what I'm saying. You can go bet the most sure thing that there is out there. Go bet a 30-point favorite on the money line for all I care. If it hits, and it will, you win $300 in bonus bets. A lot of you thought I was making that up or there was a catch to that. And 2 people this past Saturday said, hey, you were actually right about that. I bet Miami on the money line and they won and I got $300 in bonus bets. I know. I told you would. There's no catch. It's just that easy. It's not totally free. Technically, they could get upset, but they're probably not going to get upset. In the meantime, Ramen Noodle Express Week 4. We're right at 500 right now. Right at 500. We can do better. We will do better. First 3 games on the Ramen Noodle Express this week. Troy plus 6.5. I believe they're playing at Buffalo. We bet against Buffalo yesterday. It hit. We are the only show that has bet Kent State every week, by the way. So we bet against Buffalo yesterday. It hit. We're taking Troy plus 6.5. Northern Illinois is headed to Starkville, Mississippi. We are taking Northern Illinois plus 22.5. Sneaky line there. And we're taking Oklahoma minus 5.5 against Auburn. We think Oklahoma is a decided favorite in this game by over a touchdown, and we think the number is too low. And so whatever it does during the weeks, whatever it does, we're taking it at 5.5. So OU minus 5.5, Northern Illinois plus 22.5, Troy plus 6.5. That is our show. If you're here and you're watching live, before you leave, thank you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's it. That's all. Love offering, not even being collected. Just subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll be back Tuesday night, full predictions for week 4. Until then, for Director Bradley, for producer Jesse, I'm Josh Pate. Take care, enjoy the start to your week, and God bless.